So we're almost in a position to make our higher or lower app, but we're going to need a way to test whether or not the number that the user has entered is indeed higher or lower than the number that the phone is thinking of. So let's find out how we can do that. I'm going to create a new chunk of code here, and then we'll just save it as if statements. There we go. So as you might imagine, an if statement is a way of testing whether a certain statement is true, and if it is, then doing something as a result. If you've done if statements or any kind of programming really in any other programming language, you'll be very familiar with this setup, and it's not that different in Java as it is anywhere else. So we could start off with something like if, and then we use again parentheses to contain our statement. So if we had something very straightforward, something like 2 is greater than 1. So that's a statement that is most definitely true. Then we might print 2 is greater than 1. Simple as that. So we're just testing for a statement to be true, and if it is, then we do something as a result. So let's just check. There we go. 2 is indeed greater than 1. If I change that to a test to see if 2 was less than 1, then nothing happens, because that's not true. So this is all well and good, but not particularly useful if we're just using it on statements that are always true or false. So normally we would use it in conjunction with some kind of a variable. So let's say, for example, we've found out the age of our user, and they are 21. And we want to test whether or not this particular user is older or younger than 18. So how do you think we'd do that? It's pretty straightforward. We just say if age is greater than or equal to 18. And for now, we'll just change the print to user is over 18. Whoops. There we go. So that is obviously true for this particular user. If we change them to be 16, then it ceases to be true. Now, it may well be that we want to do something if the user is not over 18. So maybe show them a message or something like that. And to do that, we would use the else command, like that. So essentially, we're testing if something is true. If it is, we do that thing. If it isn't, then we run this chunk of code here. So user is under 18 would be the obvious choice. Here we go. There we go. So user is under 18. So that's the else statement, which can be very useful if we want to test for 1, 2, or more different options. I'm just going to get rid of that. And could you do a test to see if the user was equal to the age of 18? Go for it. Okay, this was a little bit of a trick question. If you've done programming before, you might well have seen what I was after, but what I was trying to trick you into doing is something like that. So if age is equal to 18, then print the user is 18. Looks fine, right? Let's just start it and take a look. We've got all sorts of problems now. That doesn't work. And that's because what we're actually doing in this command here is setting the variable age equal to 18. So we're not testing whether or not it's equal to 18, we're setting it equal to 18. So to separate out the setting a variable equal to something and testing whether or not it's equal to something, we use the double equals. So if age and then double equals 18, then this will work. So now let's just check it out. So nothing happens. That's good because the user isn't 18. They're 16. If we now set them to be 18 and run that again, we get user is 18. So if you haven't seen that before, if you are new to programming, that's a really common error, that if you just put a single equals there, you'll get an error when you try and compile your code. If you want to test whether something is equal to something else, you need to use the double equals. So just one more thing to show you with if statements is we saw the else command a moment ago, but we can combine that with another if statement. So maybe we want to check that either the user is 18, or they're older than 18, or they're younger than 18. So if we want to check that, we might want to check that they're 18 first, and if they're not, then we do another check. So else if age is less than 18. So if that's the case, then we might print user is under 18. And then the only other option is that the user is over 18. There we go. So you can have a number of different if statements all linked together in this way to check for different possibilities. And that's about all there is to it. What I want you to do as a quick challenge, just to make sure that you've got everything clear, is to create an array with 2 integers in it and write an if statement to test whether the second integer is greater than the first. And if it is, display something to the logs. If it isn't, display something else. Simple as that. Go for it. All right, hope that went well. I'm just going to run through how I would have done it. So to create our array of integers, we use int and then square brackets. And I'm just going to choose 2 integers like that. There we go. And so I wanted to check whether the second one was bigger than the first. Oh, I've managed to forget an actual name for my array. I'll call it numbers. So the second element in the numbers array is accessed by numbers 1, because remember it's 0 and then 1. So if that's greater than the first, numbers 0, then don't forget system out println, the second number is greater. And the only other option, or is it, system.out.println, the first number is greater. There we go. So your code may have looked quite a bit like that. There we go. So we've got the second number is greater. There we go. So it seems to work fine, but I wonder if you fell into my little trap, and if you end up with 2 numbers which are the same in your array, it's going to say that the first number is greater because I did strictly greater than there rather than greater than or equal to. So really I needed 3 options, because either the second number is greater or the first number is greater, or they're the same. So to make this completely correct, I should use a second check to check whether numbers 0 is greater than numbers 1, and then there's a final option, and that really are only 3 possible options now, so I don't need to do a check this last time round. System out println, the numbers are the same. And let's just check. There we go. So there was a bit of a trick on my part that I didn't mention the possibility that they could be the same, but I hope you managed to do at least the first part, and if you managed to spot that there's that third option as well, then congratulations. Excellent, so now we've covered if statements, and we're in a position to make our extremely exciting higher or lower app. I'll see you in the next video.